Of all ancient civilizations, the Aztecs are some of the most intriguing, shrouded in immense mystery as the secretive culture of Mesoamerica. Their rites and culture have been the center of historical, archaeological, and cultural speculation. The Aztec Empire flourished in the 14th century before abruptly fading away after the forceful Spanish troops invaded and took over the Mexican land. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 Aztec mysteries. Archaeologists uncover secret passage to the underworld at Pyramid of the Moon in Teotihuacan. The antique city of Teotihuacan is the subject of much curiosity, especially now that an underground tunnel was uncovered by archaeologists underneath the mystical Pyramid of the Moon. It is believed that the tunnel symbolizes the Aztec passage to the underworld. In 300 BCE, the people of Mesoamerica built the great city as they expanded their settlements. At its prime, more than 125,000 people lived in Teotihuacan. At the time, it was the 6th largest city in the entire ancient world. Robert Cowgill, an archaeologist at the University of Arizona, has stated that it was the largest city anywhere in the Western Hemisphere before the 1400s. It had thousands of residential compounds and scores of pyramid temples, comparable to the largest pyramids of Egypt. It is unknown who built the city in its entirety. Teotihuacan is older than the Aztec people by an estimated entire millennium. There is evidence that a variety of cultures resided in the city through the centuries, including the Mayans, who influenced much of the architecture. Which culture or civilization created Teotihuacan cannot be confirmed, at least not with the limited evidence we have. The name itself comes from the Aztec word that means birthplace of the gods. However, Mayan hieroglyphs recognize the city as Pu, place of reeds. The city was in ruins when the Aztecs claimed it as their own, abandoned and forlorn for at least half a century, if not longer. Scholars are conflicted about what could have happened to the city. Some believe that Teotihuacan was abruptly attacked, its downfall resulting in a brutal siege by enemy forces. Other scholars argue that there is evidence that suggests a civil uprising occurred due to some unforeseen ecological catastrophe, such as famine, with the ruling class being overthrown. Another theory is that some natural disaster caused a vast population to decline and made survivors move away. There is residual proof of various buildings in Teotihuacan having been burned. The theory of enemy civilizations ransacking the city is widely accepted by scholars nowadays, though. However, the only structures with evidence of having been burnt are the ones believed to have housed the ruling class, coming full circle and suggesting a social revolt. The Pyramid of the Moon was traced back to between 100 and 450 AD, and was used for animal and human sacrifice, though it additionally served as a burial ground for the victims of sacrifice. An altar resided in the pyramid dedicated to the great goddess of Teotihuacan. Dr. Veronica Ortega, an archaeologist, explained in the explorations carried out at the end of the 1980s, through tunnels excavated in the body of the pyramid, archaeologists Ruben Cabrera and Saburo Sugiyama found skeletons of individuals with cranial deformation. The news of this great tunnel, symbolic of the descent into the underworld meant for the victims of human sacrifice, makes us yearn for more knowledge. Knowledge that may never come to us, but is fascinating to consider. It is unknown whether the tunnel was added by the Aztecs or if it had already been there before them. Perhaps someday we will finally find out. Geomagnetic fields and pyramids. Much to the shock of many modern people, Teotihuacan had advanced technology for its era, with professional engineering, elaborate tunnel systems beneath pyramids, and even something akin to an ancient generator that combined mineral and chemical waters into built-in chambers that created natural sources of energy. We are not sure how the energy was used and delivered, but it shows that the people of Teotihuacan were significantly more intelligent than other civilizations of the time. Sergio Gomez, an archaeologist in 2003, found a hidden tunnel beneath the temple of Quetzalcoatl. Recent heavy rainfall made the cracks in the tunnel open up and expand, revealing it on the surface and creating a noticeable divot large enough to potentially cause harm to unexpected visitors touring the city. Because of the potential for injury, Sergio Gomez inspected the cracks further. It was then that he realized it was actually a tunnel. Because of the antiquity of Teotihuacan, archaeologists are wary of the fact that artifacts could be hidden in plain sight. Every movement must be careful lest it destroys some vital information of the reality the Aztecs lived in. Every stone and pebble may hold a vast history. After he received permission from the INAH, short for National Institute of Anthropology and History, Gomez proceeded to investigate with a team of other professionals who helped him remove surface debris. The excavation was tedious and slow, but eventually Dr. Gomez was lowered into a well shaft 14 feet deep that opened up into the tunnel's cavern. The main goal was to search for artifacts, but they found the main access point to the energy complex that proceeded to go down over 40 feet. Over 400 tons of debris had to be cleared for them to access the area properly. Laser scanners revealed that the cavern went a shocking 330 feet below the surface of the pyramid and had small room chamber-like pockets cut carefully into the sides of the cavern's main shaft. Before even getting into digging, the archaeological team immediately found a plethora of artifacts and fantastic discoveries of tools left behind by ancient builders, who were evidently experienced and knew exactly what they were doing. In total, over 50,000 artifacts and classical tools were found in the cavern shaft, making the modern archaeologists consider the potential for a royal tomb to lay somewhere either in or near the tunnel. Furthermore, there was proof of water markings in the tunnel and proof of the mineral energy generator that was suspected to have been used in the city by the ancient people who lived there. There were also various mineral sediments within the ground itself. The gravel held traces of chemicals thought to have been used to generate the energy. The electromagnetic energy present in these caverns shows a professional level of precision. These natural mineral chemical generators are present throughout all Central America and Mesoamerican lands, showing that this was relatively common knowledge for the various people who once lived there. Guatemala, Mundo Perdido and Quetzalcoatl pyramids all have these electromagnetic signatures and charges. Archaeologist Burke commented on the voltage found at these sites. These voltages might sound lethal, and if it were a household current, they could be. However, static electric charge in the air is a different type of electricity, and even 1,000 volts is not dangerous. The science remains unknown to us, just out of reach. The underground city of Aztlan. Aztlan is the fabled ancestral home of the Aztecs. The location of Aztlan is thought to have been in northwestern Mexico or the southwest U.S., but it is unknown if Aztlan was ever a real place or mythical land of fables. Legend states that 7 tribes lived in the underground caves of Aztlan. Some claims of Aztlan contradict each other. Sometimes it is painted as a paradise. Other times it is said that Aztlan was ruled by a tyrant named Azteca Chico Mustoka. It is believed their priest led the Aztecs out of Aztlan and to the Valley of Mexico. Aztlan may be a fabricated world such as Camelot or Atlantis, as no physical proof of its existence has ever been found. Nevertheless, just like Atlantis, there are believers in the claim of its authenticity. Searches for this mystic land have been conducted all the way from Mexico to Utah but have been fruitless. Though never physically identified, Aztlan is described in ancient legends as a long-lost secret island, further cementing its connection with the mystery of Atlantis in the eyes of theorists. Though rather than being an island in the traditional sense, it is depicted as being an island on top of a lake. But because of the links it has to Atlantis, however limited, there are some people who argue that they were one and the same. The search for Aztec and Atlantis is a search for the same exact location with merely 2 alternative names. Though this has been heavily disputed as the legend of Aztec and the legend of Atlantis originated in different places and seem to be different cities entirely. There is a common belief that perhaps the Aztecs were not originally people stemming from Mexican lands, but came from what is now known as the Western United States and that they migrated down to the Valley of Mexico, settling there in due time. When it comes to finding Aztlan, there are 3 main issues that must be addressed. First, there is the problem of stretching. The Aztec civilization most likely would not have migrated directly from Aztlan to the Valley of Mexico, assuming there were other settlements and places they moved to during that stretch of time. As such, they would most likely have zigzagged around the continent. As such, Finding the exact traces of where they went and the journey they made it near impossible to accomplish and may always leave us with missing pieces in the puzzle. Secondly, layering. Theories suggest there would have been multiple migrations from north to south, so the travels would have layered over each other. Lastly, folding. They would have traveled from north to south and south to north continuously. As such, the potential of following in their archaeological footsteps is currently merely a fantasy. But who knows? Perhaps we will uncover the secrets of the Aztecs in their entirety someday. But what do you make of the Aztec civilization? The necropolis of the monkey god. Located in the forests of Honduras was an ancient city long forgotten and buried beneath the dense jungle of the region. Discovered back in 2015, Douglas Preston and his team uncovered the lost city of the monkey god and went throughout the entire region in an attempt to understand the ancient culture, discover new mythologies, and make discoveries never before theorized about the region. Interestingly enough, upon flying over the region and spotting this ancient city, they appeared to have found evidence of a large opening in the ground that could have led to an underground city known as a necropolis in the region. Douglas Preston explains in his published book on the discovery that in order to reach the area, a team would need a helicopter to hover over the location as the team descended down into the large opening, a feat dangerous to accomplish that many archaeologists are not trained to do. While efforts were originally made to explore this locked ancient vault, the team soon realized they contracted a parasite that would bind to the mucous membrane of the individual and slowly eat away at their face. This led to the site being quickly abandoned, along with any future efforts at uncovering the secrets of the region. To this day, it appears no one is brave enough to confirm the sighting and reach this ancient underground city unknown by researchers of the modern day. Antarctica. Mysterious humming noise. Antarctica is shrouded in mystery. It's known for its harsh climate and beautiful wildlife. Each year research is carried out on the continent and experiments are conducted. The Ross Ice Shelf is the largest ice shelf of Antarctica. It's the world's largest piece of floating ice and can be seen in the Southern Ocean in line with the mainland. For many years now, research has been carried out to get a better idea of its physical properties. Scientists had placed over 30 extremely sensitive seismic sensors under its snowy surface to monitor vibrations between 2014 and 2017, but something was picked up that left them looking for answers. Testimonies and video footage show that a mysterious humming sound can be heard. This noise was created by the structure itself. It was confusing, however, because there was nothing around that could be giving off these noises. After all, these sensors were embedded inside thick blankets of snow. Researchers in the region have suggested it could be the ice sheet that's creating the mysterious hump. However, as of today, the noise remains a mystery. Google Earth Circular Underwater Anomalies. Google Earth has enabled researchers and the general population of the world to be able to explore various parts of the world through satellite imagery. Over the years, a number of strange anomalies have been detected on Google Earth. One such anomaly is that of the mysterious circles made underwater in different parts of the world. Most of these circular underwater anomalies have been found in North America. One site of these circular underwater anomalies is located off of the coast of North Carolina in the United States. The anomaly features multiple underwater circles that seem to have been made artificially. Another site of such an anomaly is located off the coast of Florida. The underwater circles near Florida seem to have a perfect circular shape. The third site is located off the coast of Yucatan in Mexico. To those found off the coast of Florida, ancient civilizations created many circular duoglyphs in different parts of the world. However, they are all located on land. Researchers believe that there could be a possibility of some of the underwater circles being made by some ancient civilization. Some initial research work has indicated that these underwater circles could be ancient burial mounds. However, nothing conclusive can be said about these circles until further research has been conducted. The Shanti Devi story. The story of Shanti Devi is among the most amazing documentation of reincarnation, attracting the attention of everyone, including Mahatma Gandhi. Born in India's New Delhi on the 11th of December 1926, Shanti did not speak much in her first years, unlike many young children. When she reached 4 years, however, she started speaking about her memories of another life that she lived. She said that her home was not in Delhi, but instead 93 miles away in Muthra, where she lived with her husband, and she insisted that she had to go back to her son and husband. Her parents discouraged her from speaking of her previous life, telling her to put it behind her and be concerned about the present, which annoyed her and made her run away from home to Muthra. She was found and taken back to her parents. She started speaking of her previous life during school in detail and was even able to recall the names of her husband, children, and what happened when she lost her life. She died 9 days after giving birth. This information enabled the headmaster to locate a man named Kader Nath who had lost his wife Luj 9 years ago, 10 days after childbirth. Kader visited Shanti and her parents using a false name, and she soon identified him as her previous life husband. Mahatma Gandhi was informed of the events and possible reincarnation, and he set up a team to investigate the story. Shanti and the team went to Mathura, where she recognized her home, the furniture layout, and even her family members. She remembered some secrets of family members that someone would only know in confidence. Shanti was also able to tell her husband that he did not keep the promises that he had made to her. She also started speaking in her local dialect. The team concluded irrefutably that Shanti Devi was a reincarnation of Lugdi Devi. Several other researchers did their independent investigations and came to the same conclusion. Karnak stones. France. The Karnak stones in France have been amongst the most mind-boggling archaeological artifacts ever discovered. Researchers have been studying these strange stones for centuries. These prehistoric stones exist near the village of Karnak in France. These stones demonstrate dolmens, alignments, and other ancient geometry. Many of the geometric demonstrations of the Karnak stones are consistent with the other prehistoric sites found in different parts of the world. There are more than 3,000 stones at the site, and it is believed that these were cut from the local rocks. Archaeologists believe that these stones were erected sometime between 3,300 BC and 4,500 BC. Over the years, scientists and historians have made many attempts to decode these mysterious stones, but all their efforts have failed. Until recently, when an ancient science known as geoglyphology was rediscovered. Researchers had to first understand the protocols of geoglyphology in order to be able to decode the Karnak stones. After years of hard work, researchers were able to understand the science of geoglyphology. They learned the protocols of the science and applied them to different geoglyphs found in different parts of the world. They found that these geoglyphs were used as marking territories. Karnak stones used the same principles of geoglyphology. Historians believe that the famous Stonehenge in England and the Karnak stones in France were constructed during the same time period. They were made somewhere around 3400 BC. This has led the historians to believe that the cultures that created the Karnak stones and Stonehenge were related to each other. The discovery of the Karnak stones and the science of geoglyphology have opened a new window of knowledge for researchers. It is revealed that the ancient civilizations were able to not only travel across the world, but they were also able to map the world as well. It is also revealed that ancient humans were way more advanced in different sciences and technologies than we had ever thought them to be. Shroud of Turin. The Shroud of Turin is amongst the most fascinating and most famous religious artifacts in the world. It is a piece of linen cloth 15 feet in length and 4 feet in width. Many people believe it to be the burial cloth of Jesus. It has a mysterious imprint of a man's body. It is known as the Shroud of Turin as it is kept in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist situated in Turin, Italy. The shroud has been present in the cathedral since 15. Over the years, a number of researchers have tried to trace the shroud's whereabouts before it came to the cathedral in Turin. However, there is no record to hint where the shroud was kept before being placed in the cathedral. The carbon dating of the shroud has revealed that it doesn't date to the time of Christ, and it was made sometime during the 14th century. However, many of the Christians and religious clerics believe it to be an authentic artifact. Atacama Giant. Atacama Desert. Chile. Atacama Desert in Chile is home to more than 5,000 mysterious geoglyphs. They are spread in an area of more than 150,000 square kilometers. Archaeologists estimate that these geoglyphs were made between 600 AD and 1500 AD. Amongst the numerous geoglyphs of Atacama Desert, one geoglyph stands out from the rest. It is known as the Atacama Giant. It's 390 feet long, and it's the world's largest prehistoric anthropomorphic figure. Archaeologists believe that this mysterious geoglyph was made by the local inhabitants during 1000 AD and 1400 AD. They believe that it represented a deity and served as an early astronomical calendar used for determining the position of the moon. Ancient civilizations used the position of the setting of the moon to determine the exact day, crop cycle, and the season. The Freiberg Shriek. Referred to as the Freiberg Shriek, a strange encounter with a subterranean creature has left many wondering if the possible sighting is related to that of other creatures and an impending disaster. The creature was spotted by more than 21 different individuals, of whom worked as miners at an old mine located in the town of Freiberg, Germany. On the 10th of September, back in 1978, these miners were going about their day as usual. They were the first group of miners to enter the mine every morning and work their shifts until late that evening, a schedule that was rather routine by this point in time. Though they would work these mines every single day and had worked this very same mine only the day prior, there would be a strange creature inhabiting the area near the entrance of the tunnel that they would all claim to have seen. The creature was described as being a tall, dark figure with large wings on its back, standing at the entrance to the mine. After all the miners stared at the creature for a while, frightened by its appearance, the creature opened up its wings and let out a piercing sound. Some described the sound as being like 50 people screaming, whereas others claimed it more closely resembled the sound generated by a train in peril trying to brake at the sight of a twisted rail. The creature then went deeper inside the mine and could not be seen by the miners. After this encounter, the workers decided that they would delay mining for a few more hours by working on outside jobs before entering the mine, as they were attempting to calm themselves while trying to figure out what had just occurred. As they were working, a loud explosion occurred within the mine itself, causing a collapse of certain chambers and closing off areas of the mine that would later be excavated to continue work. This has led many to believe that the creature could have been that of the Mothman given the description of the creature, and that its actions were to prevent a tragedy from occurring by saving the lives of the miners. Despite this, the majority of the workers would go on to suffer from self-proclaimed mental issues, recurring nightmares and visions. Additionally, 6 of the miners would eventually have been found dead in their sleep, having perished suddenly with no real explanation. The recovery of the CAS-2, known by many as one of the biggest Australian mysteries, is the recovery of the CAS-2 sailing yacht that has been given the name of the Ghost Ship. After setting sail on the 15th of April in 2007 with a 3-man crew, Derek Batten, Peter Tunstead, and James Tunstead, the CS2 would later be recovered on the 20th of April, merely 5 days later, with a completely missing crew and no evidence of foul play. The authorities reported that the circumstances in which they found the yacht was incredibly strange. Everything appeared to be completely normal. Food and flatware was set up at the table as if the crew had been eating and stopped in the middle of their meal. The laptop computer was set up and still on, indicating that the battery life had yet to be drained and the boat's engine was still running. No evidence of foul play was discovered, which showed that there appeared to be no struggle of any kind on the ship, but the cause for the disappearance of the crew could not be solved. Many regard the event as possibly supernatural or extraterrestrial, with cases of ghost ships and mysterious disappearances of a full crew happening all throughout history, similar to the case of the Marie Celeste and the missing USS submarine. As these are not isolated cases, this could very well mean that there is someone or something out there causing these strange disappearances for reasons currently unknown. Palpa Flat Mountain, seen as one of the most convincing pieces of evidence for that of ancient civilizations having once possessed advanced technologies, is that of the archaeological discovery of the Palpa Flat Mountain. Ancient astronaut theorists have often posited that perhaps the gods of ancient cultures that supposedly descended from the stars were not actually gods, rather advanced alien life forms. This would make sense given the fact that many cultures directly write about how the gods came from the stars or on machines that could fly. Interestingly enough, the ancient Nazca tribes also seem to hold a similar belief to their religion, and the evidence in the area only shows this further that it could very well be the case. As many different pilots flew over the area of the ancient tribes, a shocking discovery was made in regards to what they could see from the sky. Lines drawn out in the desert were made visible from the sky that appeared to be created over many miles of distance. In fact, the lines were detailed images and navigation trails that would have helped possible aircraft find areas to land and travel to. This was made only more interesting as located nearby these large creations is that of the Palpa Flat Mountain. Located on the Palpa Flat Mountain is a completely flat mountainside as if flattened down by vast ancient technologies. This is made more peculiar as it seems to be the only flat mountain in the region, with a top that looks artificially cut from its base. Located on this flat top are lines and creations that pilots have often mistaken for a landing strip for aircraft. This has led many of the ancient astronaut theorist communities to believe that perhaps the tribe helped their gods by creating these lines in the sand that were only visible from the skies. These lines could be used similar to that as modern-day concrete arrows used to point towards landing strips and other aviation important signals. This would be a plausible explanation as the lines on the ground are not visible and would not be able to be used religiously or for any other important purpose without the ability to see it from the sky. Interestingly enough, the lines seem to be very old and ancient and provide proof as to the tribe's advanced knowledge in geometry in order to create massive images in the sand that they could never see themselves. Additionally, these pieces appear to be images of things the tribes held with utmost importance, such as that of different kinds of animal life and strange symbols that are nearly impossible to understand. Today, experts have no explanation as to the cause for the creation of the lines or the purpose they serve outside of both a religious connotation and assistance in aviation. The Devil's Sea legend, although many might be well aware of the Bermuda Triangle and the numerous strange disappearances surrounding the location, many are not yet aware of the Devil's Sea located near Japan and often described as the Pacific Bermuda Triangle. According to the Japanese urban legend, the area of the Devil's Sea is that of danger and mystery as many Japanese vessels have completely vanished from the face of the earth when entering the zone. The time, despite the many efforts made by the Japanese government to cover up the claims, in fear of the port economies being affected by the legend, the fears surrounding the area only continued to rise as more and more vessels went missing. Japanese government officials were already well aware of the strange danger of the location before popular rumors began spreading surrounding the location. In fact, the Yokohama Coast Guard of the region outlined the area as though never elaborated as to why the area was given that classification. It would not be for another few decades before researchers would discover what caused the number of strange disappearances and the true reason as to why the area is considered a massive dangerous territory. It appears that for some unknown reason, the area seems to hold a large amount of pressure of methane gas that becomes concentrated in a region and acts similar to that of timed. These methane hydrate gases can spontaneously explode if the temperature surrounding the area slightly rises to 18 degrees Celsius. Alongside the evidence of the methane concentrates and underwater pressure, researchers also discovered additional evidence of a supermassive underwater volcano in the area of the Devil's Sea. These large volcanoes have been discovered in the past to be able to erupt at sporadic times and even cause instances of seismic activity in the oceans nearby that of Japan throughout the region even during a seemingly perfectly weathered day. This has led researchers to believe that the underwater supermassive volcano could also be at the center of the formation of these methane hydrate gases all throughout the region and other strange anomalies reported throughout the Devil's Sea, such as that of glowing light underwater, sudden waves, and boiling spots, ultimately proving the legitimacy of the fears and claims surrounding the location. The Chicago Willis Tower sighting. Back in 2017, on the 24th of July at approximately 5:10 p.m., several eyewitnesses claimed to have seen a large insectoid creature flying and landing on the Chicago Willis Tower. Eyewitnesses had quickly called a man by the name of Lon Strickler, of whom runs a website known as Phantoms and Monsters, and alerted him to their sighting of the strange creature, trying to figure out what it could have been. The eyewitnesses described the creature as being roughly 6 feet in height and perched atop the Chicago Willis Tower, with a wingspan of roughly 8 feet and jagged wings similar to that of a moth. The body of the creature was described as being similar in design to that of a praying mantis with a dark green hue and legs that seemed to be human-like. Shortly after being spotted by eyewitnesses, the creature jumped from the tower and began flying away. The eyewitnesses then claimed that as the creature was flying away, it began changing shape as if it were shape-shifting into a different form into something that was described as being a Huma hybrid. According to Lon Strickler, the owner of the Phantoms and Monsters website, this creature has been sighted more than 22 times within 2017 alone, believing many to hold the sentiment that the creature is residing within Chicago as more and more sightings every year seem to hold similar descriptions of this human-insect-bird hybrid. Egypt unfinished obelisk. An obelisk is customarily characterized as a tall and thin landmark, with 4 sides merging to a smaller than expected pyramidal shape at the top. Perhaps one of the most famous ancient megaliths found in Egypt is that of the unfinished obelisk. The massive stone has fascinated archaeologists for years, and they have said that once it was finished it was going to be over 37 meters in height. This giant obelisk also weighs over 1,000 tons, while others have suggested it weighs over 1,250 tons. The reason this giant structure was never used is because the ancient Egyptians had difficulty removing the block of stone. As they attempted to move it, a giant crack appeared down the structure. After this, the stone was no longer able to be used, so it was left there where it was. Due to its size and weight, the structure hasn't changed much since ancient times. In fact, to this day you can still go and visit the site where it's located. Every year thousands of people travel to marvel at its size. It's been estimated by Egyptologists that the stone was abandoned during the 18th dynasty. Archaeologists have said that the amount of man-hours that would have been put into the stone would have been likely to have been in the thousands, with the sad part being it didn't even get used. These giant structures were often used by the ancient Egyptians and were often placed at the entrances of things like temples. These giant stone structures would have stood proud outside of Egyptian monuments and would have been proof of their capabilities. It's incredible to think how the ancient Egyptians only had basic tools and yet were able to create such massive structures. One of the problems the workers faced when building these massive structures were looking for stones that had no damage. If it did, the whole process would have been left, just like what happened with the unfinished obelisk. Although ancient Egypt was an impressive civilization, it did get conquered by other nations, and what's sad is that some of these obelisks have turned up in other countries. There are said to be fakes, but up to 25 of them have been confirmed as the real deal. As of right now, only 8 remain in Egypt. Giant monoliths at Baalbek. The most mysterious ruins of the Roman Empire lie in the city of Baalbek in Lebanon. During the Roman era, the city of Baalbek was known as Heliopolis, or the City of the Sun. This city featured a huge temple and various other buildings. Modern-day archaeologists have been able to identify most of the buildings and their usage, but it's the giant stone that have left researchers with more questions than answers. Some of these stones are considered to be from an even earlier period, but one thing that is known is that these giant stones are some of the biggest megaliths on the planet. There are several of these giant stones here, some of which weigh in the region of more than 1,000 tons each. The largest stone is estimated to weigh over 1,500 tons. It's considered to be the largest cut stone in the world, and how it was moved and worked on is still up for debate. Another incredible fact that has baffled archaeologists is the amazing precise positioning and fitting of these stones. To give you an idea, some of these stones are fitted with such accuracy that it is almost impossible to insert even a needle between them. Many people believe that some of the earlier civilizations were way more advanced than first thought, and that these creations prove this. Rosetta Stone. The Rosetta Stone is seen as one of the single most greatest discoveries that has resonated with changes all around the world to uncover the secrets that many at the time believed would never be understood. Discovered in 1799, the Rosetta Stone proved to be the missing key required to decipher the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics as well as the mysteries of the ancient Egyptian civilization as a whole. The stone itself had 3 separate written languages that was believed to have been created back in 196 BC, and told the story of the deeds that had been accomplished by the pharaoh at that time that was believed to have been written by the high priests of Egypt. Using these translations as the basis for the language, experts began translating decades of hieroglyphic scriptures discovered all around ancient Egypt that before this point could not be understood. Not only did this lead to an explosion of knowledge in the Egyptologist community, but helped to shed incredible light into one of the oldest civilizations on the planet. Many experts believe that without this incredible discovery, we would still be no closer to translating the ancient Egyptian language even in the Middle Ages. Pharaoh's inscription, one of the biggest discoveries that helped to launch the careers of many self-proclaimed experts in the study of Egypt and its ancient culture, was the discovery that the pyramids of Giza were constructed by the pharaoh Khufu, of which put the pyramids at a certain date of construction in time. This was, at the time, seen as a tremendous breakthrough in the Egyptology community and left many other experts scratching their heads as to why they didn't find evidence of it before. The problem with this discovery, however, is that the only evidence of the name of the pharaoh referenced on the pyramid was an old carving in that of the Campbell's chamber that many believe could have been the cartouche of Khufu and his royal signature. As it later turns out, the carving was an obvious forgery, with the dating of the piece, the damage done to the piece, and even the incorrect spelling and carving of the cartouche being the smoking gun evidence that it was nothing more than Egyptologists looking to take on a false sense of fame and fortune with their published works. This has led to an incredibly large piece of history that has been completely wrong, and given the fact that the majority of works in the modern day were built off of these ancient findings, it appears that the experts could have gotten it completely backwards. Not only is there physical and scientific evidence of the pyramids being much older, possibly even older than human civilization itself, but it appears that the Egyptian government has politicized this issue, so that no other people and countries can lay legitimate land claim in the territories currently being of the organization of the Egyptian people. This has led many Egyptologists to reject true evidence of dating, references to the timeline of an actual reign of a pharaoh, and even the complete rejection of any ideas involving alternate explanations of construction, time frame, and even historical impacts. The rate the universe is expanding. Astronomers have discovered something interesting while using NASA's Hubble Space Telescope. They have said that recent findings have allowed them to measure the universe's expansion rate. For those unaware, the universe is getting bigger every second. But the big questions are why and how. The space between galaxies is forever growing. But what this recent study has shown researchers is that the modern universe is expanding faster than we expect. This is based on when the universe was first formed 13 billion years ago. One of the issues with space is we really don't understand how it works, with some scientists coming forward and saying that the human brain can't comprehend its size. Researchers have said the universe is expanding 5% to 9% faster than expected. One of the scientists said the following: "This surprising finding may be an important clue to understanding those mysterious parts of the universe that make up to 95% of everything and don't emit light, such as dark energy, dark matter, and dark radiation." These results were published in an upcoming issue of the Astrophysical Journal. The moon is shrinking. Earth's moon was formed around 4.6 billion years ago, and it's always in synchronous rotation with Earth, which means that we always see the same side of the moon. The first unmanned mission to the moon was in 1959 by the Soviet lunar program, with the first manned landing being Apollo 11 in 1969. Due to its size and composition, the moon is sometimes classified as a terrestrial planet, along with Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. In the summer of 1994, the moon was very extensively mapped by the little spacecraft Clementine, and again in 1999 by Luna Prospector. In recent years, there has been a special interest in the dark side of the moon. This popular term refers to the fact that the same physical half of the moon is always facing Earth, which in turn means that there's a dark side. Recent NASA scientists have come forward and said that they've discovered something interesting about our moon. They said that it's shrinking and shaking. They've said that their studies have shown that the inside of the moon has shriveled up and that deep cliffs can be found all over its surface. What's interesting is that this recent study suggests that the moon could still be shrinking. Researchers have also come forward and said that the moon's surface crust is brittle and that due to the moon shrinking, it's starting to break the surface. One of the senior scientists at NASA said the following about this discovery. Our analysis gives the first evidence that these faults are still active and likely producing moonquakes today as the moon continues to gradually cool and shrink. Some of these quakes can be fairly strong, around 5 on the Richter scale. The scientists have also been using high-detailed images to help the discovery of other faults. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter camera has snapped over 3,500 images, and these have helped scientists to understand what's going on the surface of the moon. Some photographs in particular have shown them that there are bright patches and scraps on certain terrains. These small details are showing the researchers that recent quakes have happened on the moon. These moonquakes can last up to an hour and have been known to send boulders rolling down cliff slopes. One researcher said that around 20 to 30% of the moonquakes were most likely generated by built-up energy from these faults, and that they didn't think this had happened from naturally occurring space debris like asteroids. NASA scientists have said that they are keeping a close eye on this seismic shaking. This recent discovery was published in the journal Nature Geoscience. Space rule. Back in 2009, top researchers at the Goddard Space Flight Center sent a device up into space via a giant balloon known as ARCADE. ARCADE was an acronym that stood for Absolute Radiometer for Cosmology, Astrophysics, and Diffuse Emissions, which details its mission as being that of a searching device capable of picking up diffuse radiation caused by the universe's earliest stars. It was a huge surprise then that instead of picking up these weak signals, the ARCADE device captured data that scientists have described as a space rule. Although a large amount of radio waves caused by a synchrotron radiation was expected by researchers at the Goddard Space Flight Center, what was recovered and analyzed turned out to be radio waves 6 times the normal amount expected to be heard, as well as their origin points being from that of galaxies 2.5 million light-years away. This has led many to speculate the possibility that perhaps this enormous amount of background radio waves found in our universe could be that of extraterrestrial civilizations and their frequencies sent out into the vacuum of space. This could very well be the case, as our radio wave frequencies have been spreading out like a bubble from Earth since the first transmissions were sent a little over 100 years ago, and given the fact that these extraterrestrial civilizations could predate us by millions of years, we could be picking up the faintest signals that have reached us over a vast distance of both space and time. Scientists struggle to find any other cause for this mystery, and have left many wondering if whether or not we are truly alone in the universe or we are merely the latest species to tune into an age-old galactic conversation. 13th Dead Sea Scrolls Cave. When the Dead Sea Scrolls were originally found scattered throughout 12 different caves in the region, many believed it to be the complete collection of the set, and no evidence of other caves or artifacts could be discovered. Recently, however, back in late 2017, a new Dead Sea Scrolls cave was located, making it the 13th cave to house these strange artifacts. Unfortunately, the find came all too late, as it appears that looters and tomb raiders more than took the entire collection, leaving behind nothing more than a few black pieces of parchment and far less valuable artifacts. Due to this discovery, a more substantial budget and funding has been provided to the team to survey many other landmarks and caves in the region to uncover further missing artifacts. The funding was provided as part of a larger project known as the Israel Antiquities Authority, as they are racing to identify any further that may contain archaeological remains before several other looters operating in the area find them. Considering these scrolls hold unedited original versions of biblical history, as well as additional stories removed from worship scripture, they could more than hold the secret as to many religious traditions, histories, and evidence of ancient biblical knowledge. The tunnels of the pyramids. As researchers were busy studying the engravings and stone writings down near the base of the pyramids, they believed that the mythologies of the pyramids would be revealed if they continued to their work there, and had no plans to make any other attempts for the foreseeable future. It would be revealed to them, however, that even more secrets surrounding the function of the pyramid would appear at a much lower part of the ancient Aztec construction. That would help shed some light as to the main functions of the pyramid structures, as well as cause new conspiracies to grow in response to these discoveries. Interestingly enough, it appears that researchers have discovered that underneath the ground there appears to be even more constructions and mysteries to uncover. Located below the massive Aztec pyramid, known as the Temple of the Sun, there seems to be an intricate detail of underground passages and areas one could enter. Oddly enough, The existence of the tunnels was not discovered until a large sinkhole had opened up, allowing researchers to look inside that massive tunnel system and discover artificial and man-made passageways. At the time of this opening, the lead researchers in the region quickly covered up the sinkhole using tents as to prevent any tourists from journeying inside. They then began dropping stuff into the tunnels and noticing that the sinkhole went down for quite a way. After petitioning the government to get the permission to enter into the opened-up site, they discovered that the area opening up into man-made tunnels winding all around the area. Although there is yet to turn up any further study and research on the matter of these tunnels located underneath the large pyramid structure, it is believed that these tunnels can stretch on for miles, while simultaneously holding a large amount of water beneath that of the large pyramid structures without compromising the stability of the area. Many have pointed to these tunnels being used as possible aqueducts or passages for priests of their time, though nothing conclusive has been found as supporting evidence of this theory. Others believe that the force of the underwater pressure could be used as a primitive method of energy generation that could be used for a wide variety of purposes. Similar theories were believed at the base of the Great Pyramid at Giza when water tunnels were also used there for decades in the past. This leaves many conspiracy theorists wondering if the pyramids served as an additional purpose of power generation. Currently, not much is known, and the mystery of the tunnels continues to be a perplexing study in the modern. Serpent Mound, surrounded by forests on all sides and used as a popular tourist destination and dog park in the modern day, Serpent Mound has continued to prove to be one of the most difficult mysteries to explain for archaeologists from around the world. Located in the secluded Midwest of the United States in the rural area of Adams County, Mississippi, Serpent Mound is an ancient structure carbon-dated to have been created back during 300 BC. Who exactly created this structure is not entirely known. Original theories posited by archaeologists was that the Serpent Mound had been formed by the Fort Ancient People of North America, a Native American tribe of people lasting from 1000 AD to 1700 AD. These theories would be put into question, however, after more comprehensive carbon dating would take place, proving that the area's creation dates back as far as with repairs made to it as late as 1000 AD, most likely by the Fort Ancient People at a time much later. This meant that although the Fort Ancient People would repair and maintain the mound, they were not the original creators of the mound and were unable to have been in the region during the time of its creation. Serpent Mound itself also seems to display key pieces of evidence of a potentially obsessive culture surrounding the positions of celestial bodies, as the mound itself works as one of the most accurate calendars ever seen of ancient people. Such examples of this accuracy are that the high points of the humps facing outward of the Serpent Mound directly match the summer solstice, equinox, and winter solstice sunrise. The spaces between the humps at the highest and lowest points directly match the lunar alignments. The face of the snake directly points toward the summer solstice sunset. The strangest example is that of the line created when the tail and face of the serpent are put across 2 points also point towards true north and true south, measurements impossible to get from merely compass readings. No one knows how such accurate measurements could have been gathered by ancient people in the Americas during the time of the creation of Serpent Mound, and little evidence has been found of any ancient cultures that would fit the profile of its creators. Big Grey Man of Ben Macdui. Back in 1891, famed Scottish climber Norman Colley would reveal to reporters and publications that during his climb of the summit of Ben Macdui, the second tallest mountain located in the United Kingdom, he had encountered a strange and supernatural entity that had forever changed his outlook on the natural phenomena of the world around him. During his climb near the summit of the mountain, Norman Colley first claimed, "I began to think I heard something else than merely the noise of my own footsteps. For every few steps I took I heard a crunch, and then another crunch, as if someone was walking after me but taking steps 3 or 4 times the length of my own." Colley would also add that though he had made earlier attempts at locating the cause of the sound, the growing mist of the mountain made it nearly impossible for Colley to have seen any object more than 5 feet in any direction. It was not until Norman Colley reached the peak of the mountain, however, that his growing fears would reach their climax. Colley explained that upon reaching the summit, the noises of the hidden creature had suddenly created in him an immense feeling of fear that he had never felt before during any of his other climbing expeditions, causing him to immediately begin running on the loose rocks and nearly injuring himself as he descended the mountain. Although a number of original reports fail to coincide with one another, some claim that Norman Colley had spotted a large figure in the mist, causing him to flee in terror. This figure would later be dubbed as the Amphioliathmore, also known as the Big Gray Man of Ben Macdui. Further study into the creature shows that a number of other well-experienced and world-renowned climbers also experienced some strange and supernatural presence on the mountain. In 1904, a climber by the name of Hugh Death Welsh claimed that he had heard slurring footsteps following behind him near the summit of the mountain and suddenly experienced a growing feeling of eeriness and apprehension. In 1945, famed mountaineer and rescue worker Peter Denzum reportedly heard crunching noises around him as he became overcome by a terrible feeling of concern, causing him to flee the expedition, until 1958 when naturalist and mountaineer Alexander Tunian would publish an article in the Scots magazine that detailed a terrifying encounter. The article is quoted as saying, "In October 1943, I spent a 10-day leave climbing alone in the Cairngorms. One afternoon, just as I reached the summit of Cairn of Ben Macdui, mist swirled across the Larig Grew and enveloped the mountain. The atmosphere became dark and depressive. A fear-bitter wind whisked among the boulders, and an odd sound echoed through the mist, a loud footstep it seemed. Then another and another. A strange shape loomed up, receded, came charging at me. Without hesitation, I whipped out the revolver and fired 3 times at the figure. When it still came on, I turned and hared down the path, reaching Glenderry in a time that I have never bettered." Obelisk of Aksum. The obelisk of Aksum, which can be found in the city of Aksum in Ethiopia, is a 4th century phonolite stele, weighing 160 tons and measuring over 24 meters in height. The stele is found alongside other stelae in the city of Aksum. Erecting this obelisk would have been no easy task. Researchers have suggested that this site functioned as markers for underground burial chambers. The obelisk of Aksum is designed to represent a 9-story Aksumite building with 2 false doors that are carved at the base of the stele, taking the shape of wooden entryways into an Aksumite home. The city of Aksum was converted to Christianity by King Exena in the 4th century. This move saw the end of the erection of burial stele, including pagan practices. Over a period of time, most of these stele fell to the ground, and the obelisk of Aksum eventually fell too around the 16th century, probably due to the effect of earthquakes, and since the city has long been a Christian society, it was left to deteriorate. Only King Zanu's still remained erect. After many centuries, Italian soldiers found the collapsed and broken obelisk of Aksum around the end of 1935. The pieces were taken back as loot to Italy by the fascist regime. The monument was eventually re-erected in Ethiopia near King Azanara's stele and was unveiled on September 4, 2008. Mystery of the Queen Mary. The Queen Mary is a famous ship that is larger in size than the Titanic. This ship has had many people stay on it, but not everyone left with the idea of returning, and this is why it's become known as the most haunted ship in America. The ship itself has been operational since the 1930s, and in recent years it's been the place for people to visit. During daylight, it makes for an incredible tourist attraction, but when the sun sets, it takes on a different feel. The ship made its final voyage on October 31, 1967, and has been docked in Long Beach, California since December 1967. It's now used by tourists as a getaway, and people who stay here get to enjoy the view of the Pacific Ocean outside their window. This may sound like an ideal getaway, but it's not uncommon for guests to have sleepless nights during their stay. Paranormal activity is common on the ship, and it seems that most people will experience something strange. For example, guests and staff have reported hearing children laugh while being there on their own. After looking around the area, they can't find anyone or anything that could have been making the noise. Guests have reported that while visiting the ship, they get a strange sensation as soon as they're aboard. Some describe it as a heavy feeling on their chest, no matter where you are on the ship. As of today, many travel to this ship in hopes of experiencing something that's not quite human. Taxi passenger in white. There have been a number of sightings of the lady in white ghost across the Philippines. However, there is only one story that stands out the most, as it has become the most commonly told story surrounding the legends of the ghost and its behaviors in the country. According to the urban legend, the spirit of the lady in white belonged to a long-haired woman of whom was wearing a white dress on her way to a wedding. Suddenly, as she was driving along Balit Drive, her car began shaking and she crashed at a high speed, causing her to perish instantly. This has caused her spirit to be trapped in this area, in a perpetual state of attempting to get to her wedding in time. This has left many taxi drivers scared of driving through the region at night in fear of these legends. In fact, it has been told amongst the drivers that they are not to pick up anyone alongside Balit Drive at night, as it is usually the lady in white of whom will enter the back seat of the taxi and take on a more disgusting form. A form that has left many taxi drivers running from the car and abandoning their taxis entirely. Just 30 miles outside of Boston, you'll find the Bridgewater Triangle, which encompasses 6 towns: Raynham, Taunton, Brockton-Mansfield, Norton, and Eastern. A paranormal researcher by the name of Lauren Coleman gave Bridgewater Triangle its name in 1970, after a vast number of paranormal activities were reported in the area. The Hockomock Swamp is one of many mysterious landmarks in the area. An 8,000-year-old Native American burial ground was found at this site, and archaeologists couldn't believe what happened when they opened the graves. It is said that the tombs bubbled before vanishing. The swamp is still known as a superstitious site where spirits dwell. Then the Hockomock Swamp is Dighton Rock, which is known for unusual carvings on the face of the rock. There have been many speculations as to how the carvings got there, but nothing has been confirmed. The Anawan Rock is also located within the swamp, and it's said that the angry spirits of Chief Anawan's warriors haunt the surrounding area. Profile Rock is yet another landmark with a paranormal reputation. With carvings of a North American face on the rock, the natives believe it to be sacred, and legend says that Native American ghosts dance around the rock. If the mysterious rock carvings are not enough, there have been various UFO sightings within the Bridgewater Triangle. The first report was in 1760, which would most likely make it the first documented sighting on the planet. There were many more sightings in the 1900s, adding to Bridgewater Triangle's mysteries. Mysterious creatures have also been said to wander through the Bridgewater Triangle. Reports of Bigfoot-like creatures surfaced in the 1970s, and when further investigated, experts were unable to come to a conclusion. Other creatures have been seen in the area with no explanation. With just about every ounce of unusual activity within the Bridgewater Triangle, it wouldn't be complete without a few ghost stories. Ghostly phantoms have been spotted many times, making the triangle even more spooky. It can be challenging to imagine that so many paranormal acts have taken place or been recorded in one area. Do you believe the ghost stories, or do you think that some stories have been embellished over time for dramatic purposes? Tibetans inherited high-altitude gene from Denisovans. Tibet is an autonomous region of China and is famously the highest region on Earth. Famous for awe-inspiring Mount Everest, this is also the highest point in Tibet and is a staggering 29,029 feet above sea level. As of 2014, Tibet has a population of 3.18 million people. One question that's been put forward is, how do people live that high up? And how do the Tibetan people cope with the high altitude? The answer is very interesting. It is actually due to a gene that modern-day Tibetans have inherited from a now extinct human subspecies known as the Denisovans. First identified from a small amount of DNA taken from a finger bone found in Denisova Cave in Siberia, the Denisovans are thought to be a subspecies of humans that lived until around 14,500 to 30,000 years ago. There's still very limited knowledge about these people, as only a handful of remains have been found. Despite this lack of knowledge, a study at the University of Texas, USA, found that Tibetans have 5 gene variants that have adapted them to the extreme environment they live in. These genes are utilized to adapt to high levels of UV light, low temperatures, low oxygen levels, and unlimited access to food. One of the gene variants, the variant EPAS1 gene, found in modern-day Tibetans, was practically identical to that of the EPAS1 gene found within the remains of ancient Denisovans. Whilst the variants are different, they are too similar to ignore, and it is believed to have changed slightly over time as conditions changed. This variant is important as it aids with high-altitude living, as it helps Tibetan people handle low oxygen levels. It is theorized that the modern humans mated with the Denisovans around 30,000 to 40,000 years ago in Asia. These people then subsequently inherited the early EPAS1 gene from the Denisovan side. The carriers of the gene had no problem living at higher altitudes and therefore settled down on the Tibetan plateau. This is a clear reason that 87% of Tibetans nowadays carry this gene, as they are descendants of these early settlers. It's incredible to see the direct link between the ancient world and our modern-day world, and that 40,000 years have passed and we can still make this connection. Where have South Africa's great whites gone? From 2010 to 2016, some of the world's most famous great white sharks were known to congregate in several areas across the South African coast. This included the densely populated sites in False Bay and Gansby, where an estimated population of 900 of the great whites were commonly sighted. However, since 2017, researchers and cage diving operators studying the sharks in this noticed a sudden sharp decline in the numbers of sharks spotted. It is unclear how many white sharks there are supposed to be around South Africa. Estimates range from around 500 right up to a 901 population alone. When the sharks were most active in False Bay in 2010 to 2016, there were sightings averaging 205 times per year. However, in 2018, that number took a giant hit, plummeting right down to 50 sightings in that year. And in 2019, the number dropped to no sightings at all. The most recent white shark sighting occurred in January 2020 in False Bay, over a year after the last sighting. For those few years between 2016 and 2020, researchers were baffled as to why the sharks had suddenly disappeared. Alison Koch, a marine biologist for South African national parks, has studied the white sharks in South Africa since 1998. She says there is no singular theory for why the sharks have disappeared. However, she claims there are a handful of possible reasons, each one contributing in its own ways, such as local fishing activity which targets species of sea creatures that juvenile shark pups tend to feed on, a decline in breeder sharks within the population, and the predation of sharks by orcas present in the area. To begin with, media coverage of the South African great whites indicates that demersal shark longline fisheries are the central culprit for the decline. These fisheries target and capture the important smaller shark breeds that juvenile white sharks tend to feed on, which directly impacts the shark's mortality rate. For every single smaller shark that's caught and killed in these areas, there's one less for each white shark pup to feed on and gain nutrients from. Without these, the sharks just waste away. Furthermore, fisheries in and around the KwaZulu-Natal province use shark nets and drumlines, baited hooks specifically targeting sharks to cull the white sharks to prevent them swimming too close to the shore. From 2013 to 2017, on average, 17 great whites died on these drumlines each year. This supports the theory that demersal longline fishing in the area had a direct impact on the drop in the great white population. The problem with this theory is that scientists from South Africa's Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries have indicated that there is a lack of data to support it. These scientists say that they can only recommend catch control based on data, but there are no limits in place, and there are ample concerns about the notoriously weak monitoring of the South African coastlines. PhD student Dylan Irian also has some interesting findings. While sightings in the Western Cape have dropped, those in the Eastern Cape have jumped right up, indicating that the sharks may have simply moved, despite the fact that there's still longline shark fishing there. Furthermore, the data being used to fuel this research is relatively new, being that recorded observations in False Bay only began in 1996. It's also important to note that the larger white sharks spend a lot of time far offshore, and the satellite tags used to track the sharks are extremely expensive, which means there's so much movement and data that we never even get to see. To conclude, with all of this information and data that we can't see, we cannot possibly know if the fishing of smaller prey sharks is the primary cause of the decline. Another cause of the decline could be attributed to the decline in breeders within the South African white shark population. Sarah Andreotti, a student at Stellenbosch University, studies the genetics of white sharks around the South African coast. In a 2-year study from 2009 to 2011, Sarah estimated that there were only 300 breeders in a single white shark population where the minimum is supposed to be 500 to prevent inbreeding. This low breed count suggests that the male sharks within the population are dying out either through health difficulties or culling by the local fisheries. This then means that the mature female sharks wouldn't have been able to breed as highly, which could be an explanation for the dwindling shark count. However, there isn't much data to support this, so it's hard to know if this had a significant impact in the difference in sighting counts. The final theory, and the most plausible and supported of the bunch, is the recent spike in orca presence along the South African coast. Orcas are known for preying on seabirds, octopuses, sea turtles, rays, fish, and sharks. They're also known for being highly aggressive, especially if they're of the transient type, traveling in pods, acting like wolf packs in order to hunt marine mammals. Furthermore, orcas are the most widely distributed mammals, living in most oceans and seas surrounding coastal countries. However, they prefer to cruise the waters at higher latitudes and quite near to the shore. Since 2015, an increasing number of orcas have been spotted in and around the South African coast. To begin with, 2 orcas nicknamed Port and Starboard respectively were first spotted in False Bay in 2015. Around the same time, the carcasses of a group of broad-nosed 7-gill sharks were found in False Bay. The teeth impressions from the wounds indicated that the culprit appeared to be an orca. 2 years later, in 2017, 5 white shark carcasses washed up on the shores of Gansbaai with their livers removed and with teeth marks of orcas. At the same time, Alison Koch published a paper on the first documentation of a novel feeding technique, which explained how the orcas used force to break the shark's pectoral girdle, thus enabling them to bite out the liver and discard the rest of the carcass. As a result of this newfound information, Koch theorized that the disappearance of the sharks from False Bay and Gansbaai was due to the growing orca presence in the area, were documented at the time. For example, Salvador Jorgensen tagged 17 white sharks off the coast of the Farallon Islands and they all disappeared. In his studies of the sharks, he found that the white shark can disappear for up to a year during the time that orcas pass through the area. This could be an explanation of the white shark migration to the Great White Shark Cafe between Hawaii and Baja California. Meanwhile, this natural migration as a result of the orcas could also be an explanation for their disappearance from False Bay, Gansbaai, and other South African coasts. However, this might be a misinformed argument that's based on the data from 2 outliers, Port and Starboard. Due to the shark's evasive migration, there was an increase in white shark sightings further along the coast in Mossel Bay. At the end of 2019, Cox studied the orcas that passed through Mossel Bay at the time, and found that orcapods had come into an aggregation site with no change in white shark sightings. These orcas didn't include the 2 orcas known as Port and Starboard, which indicated that these were the only 2 orcas responsible for the deaths of the white sharks recorded. Nonetheless, at the end of 2019, a video surfaced that shows an orca being interested in one particular white shark in a group. Later data shows that same shark population dropped from 10 white sharks down to nothing overnight. Therefore, it's hard to say whether multiple orcas are the cause of these deaths, or if it's just those 2. Either way, we can say with some level of certainty that increased orca presence in the False Bay and Gansbaai coastal areas directly impacted the number of white sharks that were around at the time. Dead Sea Scrolls turn out to be fake. The Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. is home to hundreds of religious artifacts and exhibits, some of which have been deemed the most prolific archaeological discoveries in recent history. One of the most popular exhibits is the remains of the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls revealed some authentic Hebrew texts straight from the original Hebrew Bible itself. However, these texts were not authentic at all. After a 6-month investigation by Colette Lall, detective at Art Fraud Insights, it was concluded that the scrolls were a deliberate attempt of forgery. It is believed that the material used to write on the scrolls came from an old leather shoe. This new evidence was heartbreaking to the Museum of the Bible and its patrons alike. The museum is a popular destination for church meetings and youth groups to gather to learn more about their own religion and the beliefs of others. To now discover that some of the artifacts into which they have been honoring and giving faith are fake is a massive undertaking. Founder of the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. is evangelical Christian billionaire Steve Green. Green is believed to have spent over $500 million to open the museum, but has no records of authentication for many of his most popular artifacts. It is suspected that Green turns a blind eye to unauthenticated pieces just to bring in a crowd. However, his efforts to ignore these accusations are being brought to light as more and more of his exhibits undergo scrutiny by museum patrons and art investigators. The process for authenticating an ancient artifact is slow, deliberate, and meticulous. Art experts use 3D analysis, infrared spectroscopy, and X-rays to conclude their findings. The thoroughness of their reporting is the backbone of museum success and reliability. In other words, a museum means nothing if none of its findings, exhibits, or artifacts are original. This astonishing discovery disrupts the entire story of how these Dead Sea Scrolls got into the hands of modern humans in the first place. It was originally believed that a shepherd looking for a lost sheep wandered into a cave in Qumran near the shore of the Dead Sea, where he found the fragments of the scroll. This story is now up for debate as new evidence proves that the scrolls were likely deliberately forged. Did someone plant them there? Was it the shepherd himself looking to strike it rich? Was it the Museum of the Bible curators who have since been accused of stealing artifacts from Iraq? Large humanoids seen on Skinwalker Ranch. Located southeast of Ballard, Utah is a property that has become synonymous in the coming years as being a gateway into another world of impossible to explain occurrences and supernatural encounters. The property has been given the nickname of Skinwalker Ranch, and given the sheer number of encounters over the past few years, it's become known as a paranormal hotspot. Though there is still a heavy amount of debate surrounding the claims of people encountering Sasquatch-like creatures, it has become apparent that there appears to be a growing number of large humanoid-like creatures being seen in the region of Skinwalker Ranch, and these have left many wondering if the area has become a hotbed of fantastical and supernatural sightings. According to several witnesses, there have been claims of massive hairy Sasquatch-like humanoids that have been seen throughout the region. Though the accounts vary widely in claim, from some claiming that the creatures stand at 7 feet tall, to others claiming they stand at more than 15 feet tall, there is no shortage of strange Bigfoot claims that have left many people believing that perhaps the large, hairy, ape-like humanoid is also moving into the area. This has led to a furious debate amongst those researching the ranch that believe that perhaps there is evidence of hairy humanoid-like creatures, but that this does not necessarily point to evidence to that of Sasquatch creatures growing throughout the region. Others believe that with the growing numbers of Bigfoot sightings across North America, along with the number of Bigfoot hotspots across the state of Utah, that perhaps the skinwalkers and claims of dogmen and werewolves are nothing more than that of sightings of a Sasquatch population slowly growing across all of North America. As more reports of such creatures began to pile up, the researchers of Skinwalker Ranch began to include the theory that perhaps there is a growing population of Sasquatch responsible for the strange sightings, though a consensus on the matter hardly seems possible at this point in time. Formation of gravitational waves. Back in 2014, the LIGO Institute made the groundbreaking discovery that helped to prove the existence of gravitational waves within our universe and the very nature of the warping of the space-time continuum by observing one of the strangest natural formations in the universe. Ever since this incredible discovery, many different organizations have been racing to confirm the findings to cement their name amongst those to be credited for helping to establish this fact of the universe. Interestingly enough, it appears that in 2017, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration made their way into cementing the space agency on the matter when they announced the discovery of a natural light effect observed by the agency when two merging neutron stars that created powerful gravitational waves in all directions fell into each other to form a pulse of high-energy light emission. This event occurred on the 17th of August back in 2017, when NASA used the Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope to measure these changes, as well as witnessing one of the rarest astronomical events in the universe that only helped to add more evidence to the natural gravitational wave phenomenon measured by the LIGO Institute, whilst also helping us to get a more accurate measurement of the gravitational wave's effect on the movement of light. This could very well help to pave way for the use of such warping technologies to help create many different methods of faster-than-light travel, while also changing our current understanding of the physics of our universe. Until another sighting can be made to help confirm the two previous studies. These two sightings remain to be the only proven incidents of naturally formed gravitational waves and the warping of spacetime generated from such rarely seen astronomical events. The massive size of Tamu Massif. About 1,600 kilometers from the coast of Japan, a giant volcano named Tamu Massif is present under the waters of the Pacific Ocean. It is the largest single volcano documented on Earth. It is estimated that Tamu Massif covers an area of more than 100,000 square miles. This is roughly equivalent to the state of New Mexico or the British Isles. Tamu Massif is nearly the same size as some of the big volcanoes discovered on the surface of Mars. The massive size of Tamu Massif is quite mind-blowing considering the fact that the second largest volcano on Earth, known as Mauna Loa, spreads on an area of only 2,000 square kilometers. The top of the Tamu Massif volcano is buried about 6,500 feet below the surface of the ocean, and its base extends down to approximately 6.4 kilometers into the ocean floor. Tamu Massif is made of basalt, and it has been found to be the oldest feature of Shatsky Rise, which is an oceanic plateau in the Pacific Ocean. Researchers have been studying the Shatsky Rise and the surrounding area for more than 2 decades. They have found that the slope of Tamu Massif is much gentler when compared to other seamounts. The slope is estimated to be only 1 degree near the summit of the volcano. It is estimated to be less than half a degree down the flank. It is such a small angle that if a person was standing on Tamu Massif, they would have a very hard time knowing which side was going downwards. Previously, researchers believed that there were several large volcanoes buried under that particular area of the Pacific Ocean. However, subsequent research showed that lava flows started from the center of Tamu Massif and traveled in all directions up to hundreds of kilometers. No signs of any secondary sources of volcanic activity were found. Researchers were astonished to find that what they thought to be several volcanoes was in fact one supervolcano that dwarfed every other volcano on the planet. It is believed that the volcano became inactive during the late Jurassic period about 145 million years ago. Brown Mountain Lights Brown Mountain, located in the state of North Carolina, has seen its bare share of impossible to explain supernatural phenomena. So much so, in fact, that a U.S. geological survey was started back in 1922 of the area to try to figure out the cause of a large number of strange sightings of unidentified flying objects and what would later be referred to as ghost lights. According to those living within the Brown Mountain region, locals would claim that at all times of the night one could see a large number of lights hovering over tree lines and flying in and out of the area at impossible speeds and brightness. This forced the U.S. Geological Survey to try to come up with a rational explanation as to why these lights were being recorded by a vast number of people, and led to an expedition to stay within the area for a prolonged period of time to better understand the phenomenon. After several days, despite the expedition team finding substantial amounts of evidence of lights in the region, and despite finding no evidence of methane bubbles or other natural phenomena to explain the sightings, the team would declare the mystery solved, claiming that the lights were nothing more than reflected automobile lights, train lights, fires, and local lights from houses causing the strange sightings. This explanation would be instantly disregarded, however, as a flood would soon tear through the area, wiping out power all around the region, cutting off automobile bridges and railroad tracks, and preventing any natural fires from occurring in the region. Despite the lack of power and other natural light-emitting occurrences, the Brown Mountain Lights would continue to be spotted all throughout this time, completely disproving the theory posited by the U.S. Geological Survey only days prior. The reincarnation of Dorothy Eady. Among the most fascinating reincarnation stories is that of Dorothy Eady, a woman who is believed to have been a priestess and a pharaoh's lover in her previous life many thousand years in the past. Dorothy was born into a wealthy family from England back in 1904. She led a normal life until that fateful day when she fell off the stairs, injuring her head drastically. Everyone, including doctors and her parents, thought she had lost her life. However, She later miraculously woke and her life was different. The actions of the 3-year-old were not those of an ordinary child, and her parents had noticed it. On many occasions, Dorothy demanded her parents to take her back home to Egypt. She was certain she recalled her previous life, that she was born across the sea in Pharaoh land, Egypt. She also recounted astonishing details from her time as a priestess in Egypt. From the accounts that she gave, she was called Ben Treshti and served at Pharaoh Say's court. This child drove her parents crazy, and no one could explain her sudden behavior change. In one instance, when she was taken by her parents to visit the London British Museum, she acted even more strangely when they got in the Egyptian galleries, which were full of mummies and statues of Egyptian gods and goddesses. She ran towards them and started kissing their feet uncontrollably. Immediately after, she started screaming in an ancient, unfamiliar voice which shocked her parents even more. At 15 years old, as she was studying the Egyptian history, the teenager had a lucid dream with Pharaoh Seti's mummy, an encounter that resurfaced many memories of her previous life, which made her start filling out her reincarnation puzzle. All these unfolding events made Dorothy leave Christianity to embrace the polytheistic religion of ancient Egypt. Her ability to quickly learn the Egyptian symbols and hieroglyphs at the British Museum astounded her teachers, but she explained to them that she was not learning a new language, but rather recalling a language that she had forgotten. Dorothy got married to an Egyptian student she met in England and moved to Egypt, where they lived. Upon reaching Egypt, Dorothy kissed the ground, saying that she was finally home to stay. She had a son whom she named Seti. She tried very hard her whole life to put together pieces of a 1,000-year-old puzzle of her reincarnation. Egyptologists would even later go on to prove the legitimacy of Dorothy's fluency in Egyptian. After they began studying neighboring native languages that arose and evolved from Egyptian in the area, and found their slang and accents to directly mimic certain sounds, words, and pronunciations by Dorothy. This wasn't the height of her accomplishments, however, as she would later go on to help uncover many locations of ancient Egyptian sites buried beneath sand, discover secret chambers, and assist with the recovery of long-forgotten and hidden ancient Egyptian artifacts. In 1979, the New York Times wrote a piece on Dorothy that regarded her as the Western world's most intriguing and convincing modern case of reincarnation. Although the planet known as Kepler-20f is more than 929 light-years away from Earth, meaning that it would take more than 900 years traveling at the speed of light before humanity could even reach the planet with current theories and technologies of space travel, it is still a primate location for the establishment of huge colonies and holds more similarities to Earth than Venus itself. In fact, the planet Kepler-20f is much cooler than Venus, being more than 100 degrees Fahrenheit cooler at its maximum temperature. When the planet was first discovered back in 2011, it was noticed as being a rocky planet with the same mass, radius, and gravity as the planet Earth, while also supporting a rich atmosphere believing to be containing vast amounts of water vapor. Unfortunately, this water vapor caused a runaway greenhouse effect that seized the planet at an overall temperature too hot to support life. However, with a few modifications to the environment, it could very well be a much better twin than Venus without requiring the extensive needs of terraforming as our own neighboring planet. In fact, the other celestial bodies in the region of Kepler-20f are believed to hold a vast amount of resources that could be used in mining efforts to help terraform the planet with megastructures constructed. By sending a separated human colony to the planet over many generations, the planet could potentially be a new starting ground for all of human life. The existence and mystery of dark matter. When it comes to discussing the nature of the Milky Way and the formation of mass and energy within it, nothing seems to be more mysterious and unexplained than the very nature of dark matter. What is it? Quite frankly, we have no idea. Not a single research scientist has a single idea what it is. But according to studies and calculations made by the world's best physicists, dark 80% of the mass of the Milky Way galaxy and can't, for some reason, be directly observed by any means available. Though this strange form of matter or energy can't be observed, by understanding the movement of stars, it was made obvious to researchers that there was a large amount of mass not accounted for within our galactic supercluster. This hidden mass would ultimately need to make up roughly 80% if it was to be able to hold the elements of our Milky Way galaxy together, which is how scientists became aware of dark matter and its implications relative to the very nature of our universe. Understanding what it is, why it can't be detected, and all of its strange properties could be the key to understanding big key questions about the nature of our universe and existence in general, of which makes the substance one of the biggest targets in attempting to understand in the world of theoretical physics and quantum mechanics. Until such a discovery or breakthrough realization can be made, we will just have to sit and wonder what it is and why we can't exactly measure the strange form of mass in any way. Traces of strange elements. When researchers sent a robotic drone back in 1993 up through the different shafts found throughout the pyramid, specifically the shaft in the King's Chamber, they uncovered metal pins and a strange small door. The metal pins discovered were that of a large amount of copper that appeared to have been corroded away from acidic chemicals, and further information uncovered that the shafts were lined with different kinds of trace elements. The Queen's Chamber was discovered to have been found with a trace residue of zinc and hydrochloric acid, the exact chemicals needed to produce a large amount of hydrogen gas. When looking at the shafts and the way it would have mixed a variety of complex chemicals, this could have meant that the entire pyramid acted similar to that of a large power plant in the distant past. Additionally, with the discovery of the underground network of water tunnels, many believe that the repeated pressure of the water delivered from the Nile could have added to the pressure of the chemicals and helped to power the entire generator. Given the fact that there appears to be no evidence or other working theories, it appears very possible that the technology of ancient Egypt was far more advanced than we ever could have previously realized. Recent black hole sighting. Definitely seen as the most popular astronomical sighting and discovery of the modern day is that of the picture taken and rendered by the Event Horizon Telescope Collaboration Project that used a number of different radio telescopes from around the world that helps to show in vast detail the entire movement, existence, and behavior of Einstein's theory on the existence of a singularity known as a black hole. These findings were discovered back on the 10th of April 2019, as a number of scientists came together to compile all of the data received across numerous radio telescopes to create a comprehensive image spanning light years in every direction surrounding the black hole sighting. The image of the black hole not only helps to confirm pre-existing theories surrounding the existence of the singularity, but proves to be among one of the largest compiled pictures of the universe that was pieced together from a collection of rendered images from other radio telescope information. The black hole is 6.5 billion times the mass of our Sun, as the image stretches a number of light years, showing ignited gas being torn apart surrounding the largest celestial body, proving to be one of the largest celestial bodies ever rendered via radio telescope. Although there are much larger black holes that have been known to exist elsewhere in the universe, they are only known when researchers use advanced calculations in physics and simulations to predict where and of what size a black hole could be located when looking at information surrounding stars or gas. Essentially, this makes the recent finding the single largest celestial body recorded by humanity in the modern day. The discovery of Su the T-Rex. Back in 1990, a group of researchers that had come from the Black Hills Institute from Hill City began searching for a wide variety of dinosaur fossils at the Cheyenne River Indian Reservation, located in western South Dakota, near the City of Faith. The group had originally planned to only find a select group of bones from an Edmontosaurus back when they first arrived after sightings and reports of large bones in the area, but soon realized their luck would change for the better. On the day the team was set to depart from the area, their truck had a flat tire, forcing them to stay another day for the truck to be taken into town for repairs. While the majority of the team went off to the repair shop, one of the researchers by the name of Sue Hendrickson decided to stay in the area and search for additional bones in the cliffside face in case they had failed to notice any other potential finds during the expedition. In an insane stroke of luck, Sue Hendrickson found several small pieces of bone, and when following where they had originated from, had located much larger bones extruding from the side of the cliff face. When the group had returned to pick Sue up for their departure, she shared the small bones she found with the president of the Black Hill Institute, Peter Larson, of whom, upon examining the small bones Sue had retrieved, realized that they were a part of the skeleton of an incredibly large Tyrannosaurus rex based on their distinctive contours and textures. Although the majority of the excavation team still decided to leave, Peter Larson and Sue Hendrickson stayed behind and unearthed one of the most complete T-Rex skeletons ever before seen. Most other skeletons retrieved from a T-Rex fossil usually had more than half of the complete bones missing. But in this particular case, the team was able to recreate an entire Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton from this unearthed set. The skeleton was dated as being roughly over 67 million years old. And the bones were given the name Sue as to ensure that the original founder was giving credit for their incredible discovery. The majority of the information we know today about the species, its size, its top speed, physiology, hunting tactics, and even its age come from the spectacular find that has since changed the understanding paleontologists had of one of the dinosaurs of its time. It's a well-known fact that when a top-secret aircraft is being made, the general public don't usually find out about it straight away. In fact, it can take years for this type of information to reach the masses, and sometimes it's not because the military wanted to tell us, but because there was illegal people had photographed said craft. One recent aircraft that's been talked about is that of the State Route 72. The Lockheed Martin State Route 72, also nicknamed the Son of Blackbird, is an American hypersonic aircraft currently under construction. It's the successor to the State Route 71 Blackbird, a plane that was able to reach speeds of 3,529 kilometers per hour or 2,200 miles per hour and heights of 85,000 feet. The State Route 72 aircraft will be the most impressive aircraft on the planet, having state-of-the-art hypersonic technology. Some websites even reporting that the State Route 72 will be able to strike targets anywhere in less than an hour. However, not everyone is entirely convinced that this aircraft is in its early stages, with some residents across the United States coming forward with their testimonies and photographs to prove that this hypersonic aircraft is currently flying around in our sky. As mentioned earlier, it can take a few years for the public to find out certain information, and it's known that we have the capability to build these kinds of crafts because back in the 1960s we had the Lockheed State Route 71 Blackbird. There was nothing around at the time that could match it. Even today it holds the record as being the fastest aircraft ever created. Back in the 1960s, this incredible aircraft was able to reach speeds of 3,529 kilometers per hour or 2,200 miles per hour. So knowing that we had this kind of tech back in the 60s, it's easy to see why people believe that the State Route 72 is currently flying around in our sky. One person was driving through Wyoming a few years back when they said they saw a mysterious craft above them. They said that these objects looked like two giant black triangles. Said due to where they were positioned in the sky, it was hard to get a decent photograph of them. However, they did manage to snap a photograph, and you can clearly see that this aircraft is in the shape of a triangle. It's very rare for people to see these things during the daytime. The eyewitness said the following: on April 10, 2010, I was driving east on Interstate 1815 when I looked north and saw two black, wide, triangular-shaped flying crafts. I could see their shape as the lights from my truck reflected off one of the bottom of the slow-moving crafts. There was a light on each of the points of the triangle. One light was red, one was blue, and the third looked like a white or off-white. One craft was following the other, and they were flying low west along Interstate 80. They were flying slow enough that I was able to watch them for a while. End quote. Something to notice that, as of right now, no military has come forward to claim that they own these crafts, although sightings of them have been made for at least the last 50 years. These black triangles are somewhat of a mystery, with UFO believers saying that they're not the same as our crafts, while others have said that the latest line of stealth aircrafts. Others have suggested that these large black triangles are actually the State Route 72. And those who've studied these hypersonic aircrafts have said this does add up. Various eyewitnesses who've seen these black triangles have said they've been seen leaving an area at extreme speeds, and it would make sense as we're just learning about these crafts now. And in the past, when we found out about new stealth aircrafts, they've already been in operation for a few decades. So these sightings of black triangles that people have been reporting for the last 20 years could be the State Route 72 hypersonic aircraft. However, this isn't set in stone, and there's others who have said that we currently don't have anything that could match that of the mysterious black triangles. This begs the question then, what are these things? For over 40 years, the triangle UFOs caused much debate. It's perhaps one of the most common-shaped UFOs that's been seen. These crafts are often reported as being silent, have been seen on a number of occasions just hovering in the sky. Sightings of the triangle UFOs often come in waves, with people seeing dozens at a time. They're also perhaps the most photographed UFO as well, with even news programs covering them. What's most impressive about these crafts is that they've been witnessed hovering motionless in the sky, and then suddenly making a high-speed departure. Pilots have said they're faster than any conventional aircraft that's currently in the sky. The State Route 72 program was mentioned by the Executive Vice President of Aeronautics, Lockheed Martin, and this was during an aerospace exhibition in Fort Worth. They said the following, although I can't go into specifics. Let's just say the Skunks Works team in California is doubling down on our commitment to speed. Hypersonics is like stealth. It's a disruptive technology and will enable various platforms to operate at 2 to 3 times the speed of the Blackbird. Security classification guidance will only allow us to say the speed is greater than Mach 5. As mentioned, though, a lot of people don't buy this and say that the aircraft is already in the sky. In fact, according to one source, they stated that an unmanned subscale aircraft was observed flying into the U.S. Air Force's Plant 42, which is the headquarters of Skunk Works. When those that saw and heard the aircraft asked Lockheed Martin on whether or not this was the State Route 72, they declined to comment. Other people across the U.S. have said they've seen stealth-looking aircrafts in the sky during the daytime, but note that they're too high and fast to photograph. As of right now, it's incredible to think we have an aircraft that's able to do these kinds of spins. So what do you make of this interesting image? And do you think that the State Route 72 is already flying around in our sky? Also, what do you think the mysterious black triangles are that have been seen in our sky now for almost 50 years? Humanity is fascinating. Through the eons we have built and created, burnt and destroyed, fabricated and buried 1,000 concepts, cities, and stories. Our history is rich and endless. That is why the art of archaeology is one of the most significant sciences, as it allows us insight into the lives of our ancient predecessors and how they lived, thought, and loved. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 captivating archaeological discoveries. Ancient underground city discovered beneath a house in Anatolia. When you purchase a home, you rarely consider the potential of there being an underground city beneath the floorboards, and yet this is exactly what happened to a homeowner in Anatolia. Mustafa Bozdemir, a man in his 50s, inherited a house half a decade ago and made the choice to restore the estate, only for a subterranean city to be found beneath his house, of which 4,000 square miles have been thoroughly excavated with more still to be seen. Anatolia is a region of Turkey. The country is known for its abundance with underground cities such as these. Cappadocia, one of its districts, has over 40 cities built beneath the Earth's surface, and over 200 villages have been discovered underground with actual temples, secret passages, and hidden rooms, and were able to host the lives of entire communities. Urgis University has been helping the excavation efforts. Bozdemir has confirmed that the team working on the house have indeed found human remains on the site which have been sent to be analyzed. The project director of Guntas, a Turkish restoration agency, has spoken about the fascinating find, saying, "We thought that there might be storage space for food or a stable beneath the house, but had no idea that it was part of an underground city. The underground city that we found by accident during restoration begins a few meters under the ground and has 2 levels. There are parts resembling underground remains of settlements in Cappadocia. Wonderful structures emerged everywhere like an iron workshop and a loft." The mayor of the area, Mehmet Osman Bazaglu, stated, "We think that the underground city was active in the Roman, Byzantine, and Seljuk eras, and other stone buildings there were built in the Ottoman and Republican periods." Mayor Osman Bozoglu has announced his desire to continue the excavations until they manage to uncover the entire city, and believes that this city is linked with the nearby towns of Gezi, Zinzade, and Turan. Clearly, the builders of the structure were vastly skilled in their craft, though modern scholars tend to wonder why the ancient peoples living in the area built these underground cities so intently. One idea is that of cultural beliefs or something more sinister, such as the risk of natural disasters, with researchers saying that these ancient cities are bunkers for catastrophes. Derinkuyu is the most prominent underground city with over 600 entrances, 11 levels, and could have easily allowed a population of several thousand to reside in its underground walls, hidden from the surface. Derinkuyu, Melek Gazi, and all other underground towns have stables, living quarters, livestock quarters, wells, tanks where water was once stored, cooking pits, and even ventilation shafts to cleanse the air and provide necessary oxygen to the chambers. Tombs and bathrooms have also been found in a huge amount of these places. Melek Gazi is far from being as extravagant as Derinkuyu, but its discovery nevertheless of ancient Anatolia. Archaeologists discover medieval woman and child skeletons at the Tower of London. The Tower of London is infamous for being the gruesome resting places of countless miserable souls throughout English history. The Chapel of St. Peter at Vicula lies inside the tower's walls and is the tragic burial place for Anne Boleyn, Catherine Howard, and other infamously tragic prisoners. The caretakers of the site requested to make the chapel more accessible, but before that was done, the area had to be excavated to ensure no historical relics or artifacts would be destroyed. Alfred Hawkins, a member of the Historic Royal Palaces blog, stated that archaeologists found 2 fully complete skeletal remains of medieval humans. Analysis of the bones revealed it to be the skeleton of a grown woman and child. It is believed that they were lower-class commoners or even destitute peasants that were most likely the tower's caretakers of sorts during the Middle Ages and probably lived within its walls. The bones were dated back between 1450 and 1550, a period in English history with the War of the Roses, the unforgettable reign of Henry VIII, and the cruel, unforgiving reign of his daughter Mary I, otherwise known as Bloody Mary. For the Protestants, she burnt at the stake. The skeletons were found in typical Christian burial fashion, their feet pointing east and placed on their backs. Nails were found around the skeleton of the grown woman, which implies she was buried in a wooden coffin that rotted away with time. The child, on the unfortunate end, seems to have been merely wrapped in blankets and placed into the earth. No burial trinkets were uncovered near them, and after being checked over by an osteoarchaeologist, they found that the woman was between the age of 35 to then 7 years old. Fortunately, neither child nor woman seemed to suffer from any grievous harm. Their deaths were not violent, and thus they were not executed prisoners of the dreaded tower, but instead seemed to have passed away from an illness. The woman most likely had severe lower back pain. Hawkins further said, "Their growth shows not a comfortable life, but one which is typical of the period in which they lived." The finding is exciting because these are the very first skeletal remains found at the tower since the 1970s. The reason why this discovery is so mind-blowing is that whilst historians always assumed there might be complete burials on site, records from the period claimed that burials occurred elsewhere. As far as everyone was concerned, before this finding no actual burials occurred at the tower apart from those taken to be buried in the chapel. The Tower of London has always been a drastically dramatic location, abundant with stories of woeful lovers such as Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard, executed advisors such as Thomas More, who was King Henry VIII's Lord Chamberlain until the king had him killed, and significant figures such as Queen Elizabeth I before she was crowned. Sir Walter Raleigh, and the mythical, though in the case of the princes, the popular leading theory is that Richard III had the boy's life ended after he took the throne. 2 sets of bones were uncovered under the tower's stairs. However, they have never been proven to belong to the young princes. The tower has existed for almost an entire millennium, and in that time has obtained an amazing amount of history. Hawkins explains the intimacy of the discovery. Feels fairly impersonal, uncovering a Norman ditch here, a Tudor tile there. All of these physical remains enable us to create an image of the past, but the individual history of the people who lived in these periods can sometimes be elusive. This is why the archaeological excavation of human remains is so important. It allows us to examine the way in which people lived and died in our palaces. Mayan kingdom unearthed on cattle ranch. La Cange Zeltal, a site in the Chiapas in Mexico, has been excavated by professionals from Brown and Brandeis universities. La Cange-Zeltal was settled in 750 BCE and was the capital of the long-lost kingdom of Saxe, with settlers residing there for roughly 1,000 years. In 2014, archaeology graduate Whitaker Schroeder was in Chiapas searching for sites to uncover for his dissertation, when a local told him about an ancient tablet his friend found and took Schroeder and his friend Dobreiner to a cattle ranch. Schroeder informed an associate professor at Brandeis University of the discovery, which led to a wide excavation after permission was obtained to search the site, the cattle ranch's very backyard, and ruins of religious structures, including a ceremonial center. Even an ancient ball court was found. It took several years for the Mexican government to give permission to the universities to excavate, but it was certainly worth the wait, and excavations began in June 2018. The team used available technology to their advantage, using LiDAR, light detection, and ranging surveys of the whole area, which utilizes a laser that reveals whether something is hidden beneath the earth. Ever since June 2018, the team has managed to find diverse, astounding artifacts and antiques, including a tool used by Mayan salt miners over 1,000 years ago, an ancient mask that portrayed one of the Maya kings of Mexico that dated back to the 7th century, and Grand Maya structures left over from the fallen civilization, revealing their civilization to be larger than initially believed. From what is known, the Maya civilization peaked during the 6th century AD, and yet for an unknown reason, many Maya cities were entirely abandoned sometime during the 900s AD. History is a captivating subject that reveals never-ending truths about the lives led by our ancestors. Every year we uncover more and more breathtaking secrets that make us rethink our views and beliefs of their daily lives. But what do you make of these three fascinating discoveries? Science is one of those things that is always evolving. It is not stagnant. Rather, to the contrary, it is dynamic. The science of today is unmatched to the science of earlier days, as new innovations and discoveries have come along that have reinforced facts or written off previous conceptions entirely. As vast as the knowledge is that has been accumulated to this day, there are still an infinite number of possibilities as to what else is out there. So today, we'll be taking a look at some outer scientific space theories and analyzing the human body's fascinating way of repairing itself. Unknown object observed close to the black hole. In a comparison between the ocean and space, they say we know more of space than we know of the ocean, although there still exists a gargantuan cloud of mystery that looms over it, and the surprise discoveries keep on coming. As recently as 2021, scientists and astronomers alike have been baffled by a new discovery. Pointing at the center of a black hole in the galactic atmosphere of space, an unknown and mysterious structure has been sighted. It is estimated to measure approximately 2.3 light-years in length, and it takes on a snake-like shape. From the images that have captured it, it appears like a strand of thread, although most certainly much, much larger than one, and has a rosy, fiery red color. Similar to the black hole it seems to be embedded around. So what is it? That is the crazy part. Black holes in and of themselves have a lot of mystery surrounding them, so this new discovery just adds to that element of mystery. Scientists have compiled a set of possible theories as an explanation as to what the strange snake-like filament pointing at the black hole could possibly be. One such possibility is that it could be the aftermath of particles ricocheting as a result of the commotion within the black hole. This theorizes that the speedy whirling motions of the black hole, as well as the gases within, may as a result conjure up some sort of vertical magnetic field. The second theory that scientists have conjured up is the possibility of the age-old mystery that are cosmic strings. Could the curved, thread-like structure be a cosmic string? So what is a cosmic string? First off, a little disclaimer is that it is not even confirmed that they do in fact exist. However, playing along the prospect that they are indeed among the millions of factions that make up space, cosmic strings are said to be essentially the fractures of the universe. Fractures, cracks, or indiscrepancies, whatever you want to call it. The cosmic strings theory is in correlation to the infamous Big Bang theory and is theorized to primarily point back to the times of the birth and origins of the universe. Along those lines, It is believed that at one point in time, everything in the universe was one before expanding and disintegrating into other individual parts. As a result of all of those reactions and forces taking place during the expansion and fragmentation processes, cosmologists propose that perhaps the cosmos cooled at a pace too fast that led to time essentially being fractured, hence leading to the immersion of energy-filled tube-like structures that span the length of the universe, or in simpler terms, cosmic strings. Since there has not been much solid confirmation to validate the claims of the existence of such structures in the universe, it is hard to say whether what was identified pointing towards the black hole is in fact a remnant of said cosmic strings. But the potential prospect of it has left scientists excited that this may be a breakthrough into possibly validating their existence. Not only would it be exciting for cosmologists, astronomers, and scientists alike, but also for anyone intrigued by or fantasizing about the prospects of time travel. If they do exist, cosmic strings are theorized to harness the potential for time travel, thanks to their resilience and gravitational pull. The last possibility that scientists have proposed may come off as rather bland and unexciting, as it proposes that the strange filament may be matched to millions of others found across the span of space, and that the fact that it is pointing at a black hole is purely coincidental. However, scientists do scratch their heads in doubt at this notion, as the possibility of such a coincidence comes off a bit far-fetched. They find it unlikely that it would just be there simply by chance. Fragments that formed the moon may be buried by the Earth's core. If you were asked to name the first three things that come to mind pertaining to the solar system, it is highly likely that you would mention the moon as one of them. Have you ever looked out onto the night sky and wondered how the moon even came to be a part of it? One accepted theory is that the moon was formed as a result of a collision between a planet that was estimated to be a similar size to Mars and the original and juvenile Earth. Scientists have named that planet Theia, a name stemming from Greek mythology. So where is planet Theia today? As it turns out, Theia may be closer than you think. In fact, in a sense, you may have been living on Theia all along. That's right, chunks left behind from the impact of the predicted collision long ago may be embedded deep within Earth's core. Such a scenario suggests that Earth and Theia's cores fused into one. Scientists back this claim up by further suggesting that Theia's mantle, which is the layer between the outer crust and inner core, was perhaps denser than that of Earth's, making it more likely to survive the blow and impact of the collision, hence meaning it could have very well survived in the form of leftover chunks in Earth's core to this day. As far as where these leftover remnants of planet Theia are, it is estimated that they lie along Earth's core under modern-day West Africa and the Pacific Ocean. In both regions, the leftover chunks are estimated to measure thousands of kilometers in both length and width. Scientists had originally and still designated those areas as what they refer to as low shear velocity provinces. But with time, they have added on the theory that Theia's remnants may be along those low shear velocity provinces. The theory is not entirely solidified and is still relatively up in the air. We may very well have been living on two planets all this time without even knowing. Scientists are watching proteins repair DNA in real time. Delving into more personal matters, let's talk about anatomy, but more specifically DNA. We all have it. It is the very component in our bodies that not only consists of codes that determine our features, such as if we will have blue or brown eyes, but it also serves to maintain our body systems in order to function. It is shaped as a double helix and consists of nucleotides, which are molecules that pair with specific molecules. The pairing of the nucleotides contributes to the double helix structure. The interesting thing about DNA is that it is constantly being replicated with each cell division. In other words, your DNA is being replicated as we speak, and on top of that, it does so about 2 trillion times a day, since cells are constantly dividing. It is inevitable that there will be mistakes, breaks, or mutations. The scary thought is that if the mistakes are not properly corrected, it can lead to some health consequences, such as in the case of cancer. However, there is a silver lining. Our bodies have repairing mechanisms in the form of proteins that aid in DNA repair. To advance in treating illnesses, scientists have found it crucial to understand DNA and thus its repair mechanisms, in the hope that it will shine a light that someday will prove to be helpful in the fight against diseases. That is precisely why Dr. Donna Whalen from Australia focused on observing DNA repair via an approach known as single-molecule localization microscopy, which allows for focusing on individual molecules and molecular interactions on a smaller scale, as the name somewhat suggests. Through it, she has been able to pinpoint that DNA is repaired by the body in one of two ways typically, either sporadic fusing where the breaks occur or via homologous recombination, which is the process where a break is repaired by finding a similar and compatible DNA sequence to attach to the break. The former repair method can be speedy but faulty. The latter is slower but more efficient and less likely to be fallible. Among other observations Whalen made through her introspection, she noticed that a specific protein known as Phi3BP1 works in an interesting way when it comes to DNA repair. It does not directly work on the repair site, but rather works more as a behind-the-scenes helper, so to speak, as it was viewed to be in the same relative area as the repair site, but not directly at the repair site, but still contributed to the repair. This BRCA2 is typically seen in a negative limelight due to its association with breast cancer. However, breast cancer is a consequence of a mutation in the DNA sequence that corresponds to the BRCA2 protein. And as it turns out, the protein somewhat redeems itself, as Whalen showed that it contributes an essential role in DNA repair, and that there is even a protein that substitutes for it in some cases, which illustrates versatility and redundancy in the different DNA repair mechanisms present in our bodies. All of these observations that Whalen made have left her, among other scientists, to believe that these could very well be useful in applying to modern-day medicine, in the hope of someday being able to replicate them in a lab setting for more effective approaches in battling diseases and disorders. Between the potential sighting of a cosmic string to a long-lost planet within Earth's, it is a lot to take in. And believe it or not, these are just barely scratching the surface. It is only a matter of time until there will be a crack in some other age-old mystery or an entirely new discovery. But what do you make of these interesting finds, and are we really living on two worlds? Although the majority of historical photographs are interesting, there's some that remind us that the world a few decades ago was a very different place. The world has changed for the better, but we can still look back at these photographs and remind ourselves of these events. One mysterious photograph is this one. It shows what looks like a strange man in the background. What caught most people off guard, though, is when they zoomed in on the map. He has a striking resemblance to Freddy Krueger. Freddy Krueger will go down in history as being an iconic horror movie character. Since making his debut in A Nightmare on Elm Street, he's featured in various sequels and remakes. Using a glove to take down those that stand in his way, it's hard to imagine where the idea for this movie came from. However, in an interview with Vulture, Wes Craven, who directed the movie, said that his origins are inspired by an article that he read in the LA Times. He said that, in the article, a family in Colombia was making their way to the United States. Once here, though, their son started to have nightmares and told his parents that he had to stay awake. The parents were concerned, as they said he was afraid to sleep, and said that if he did, bad things would happen. The individual in this photograph looks like it could be Freddy Krueger's twin, having the same kind of fedora as he wears throughout the film series, with some pointing out that it even looks like this individual's skin is similar to that of Freddy's. As of right now, no one knows who this individual is. San Savolo. Just 10 minutes from Venice lies an island with a dark and troubling history. Although Italy is full of breathtaking views, one would not travel to San Savolo to take in the view. It is, however, perfect if you are a history fanatic with a liking for the macabre. The history of the island is linked to the monstrosities and hospitals that were built there, the first being the church dedicated to San Savolo. Between the 9th and 13th century, the island served as the home of Benedictine monks, joined later by a gang of nuns that had escaped the convent of St. Leon that had been utterly destroyed by a raging sea-guang. However, by the 18th century, only a few nuns were left. As a result, during the war against Turkey in 1716, the monastery was shut down and transformed into a military hospital. From 1725, the Senate of the Republic of Venice made an executive decision. The hospital and the island itself were both used as a makeshift insane asylum after mental illness was first recognized as a disease that could be cured. To begin with, the asylum was only used for rich patients that could afford their own treatment. However, starting in 1979, the Napoleonic government also sent poor patients to the island for treatment. Unfortunately, because of their class and resulting poor data polenta, many of these patients succumbed to pellagra, a condition characterized by mental confusion and bewilderment. Completely exclusive and entirely in keeping with the times, San Savolo only allowed male patients to attend the asylum. There were just 5 doctors in total, directly in charge of taking care of over 700 patients, each with a range of illnesses still being researched. For over 250 years, the island was used as a dumping ground for all of Italy's patients. That is until the main hospital was shut down for the final time in 1978 due to a reform of the Italian legislation on psychiatric hospitals. Somewhat unsurprisingly, the metropolitan city of Venice now owns the island, including all government-established the Institute for the Study of Social and Cultural Marginalization, a foundation set up to preserve the asylum's history, maintain important records, and restore the island to its previous extravagance. Since 1995, the island has also been home to the Venice International University, a center for research and education, formed to bring the island's economy back up and provide a tourist attraction. Even more recently, the government began hosting an international artist residence out of the museum, which has since become a site for countless stunning exhibitions, vibrant festivals, and incredible performances. Boy and his grandfather. It's been speculated by paranormal researchers that babies and young infants are much closer to the non-physical energy that we all originate from. This spiritual connection with Source enables them to remain energetically open to vibrations around them. As babies grow, researchers say they lose this close connection and it almost becomes dormant. Some believe that before birth, a baby's spirit exists in an in-between realm, between their mother's womb and the spirit world. This is allegedly why so many young adults claim to see paranormal entities in their younger years. While being young, it's said the veil between their world and the earth realm is still very thin, which allows them to see things that adults can't. In this photograph, a young boy can be seen sitting on an old chair. The poster of the image said the boy's granddad had passed away shortly before this photo was taken. The boy asked if he could have a photograph with granddad, and so they placed him on the chair. Not thinking much of it, the photograph was taken. However, when developed, they could see a mysterious red figure was sitting next to the boy. Those who've seen the image have said you can easily tell that the apparition is in the shape of a human, with other paranormal believers going on to say that the boy clung on the chair because he could see his granddad. It's photographs like this that prove to some that ghosts are real, and that the subject needs to be investigated more. So what do you make of these mysterious photographs?